Hello, welcome to this new presentation on opinion writing. As a common reader, we always heavily depend on newspapers. Newspaper gives variety of content, different types of stories. Some of them stories, some of them cartoon, letters editor, features, editorials, sports, different subjects, economics, politics, crime. And as a journalism student, you know how these stories are generated. Editorial team always have their own set of people, correspondents, copy editors, sub-editors, designers, and others, supporting staff. Then they have wire service. These two main pillars of editorial team generates a huge amount of stories. Nearly about 80-90% of the content are generated with this support system, own editorial team and wire service. The editorial team always focus on today's developments or recent past. The stories from the conferences, stories from the police station, judiciary, government press releases, or all the other events, hard news. Wire service more or less gives similar content, but not necessarily from the way the newspaper operated. But newspapers depending on agencies because they're getting content from across the world, from the country. Stories, hard news gives the information, facts, and we have seen the feature stories, which gives interpretation, commentaries, and that these stories and feature stories are presented from the one perspective or two, three perspectives. As a common reader, we are very keen to know the other side of the story. Maybe positive, maybe negative. And we want a kind of personal opinion from some authoritative person. Subject experts, climate change, politics, crime, judiciary, a retired Supreme Court judge. So opinion about a recent judgment more valuable than a journalist giving a write-up on the Supreme Court judgment. Similarly, scientists from the climate change operation gives a write-up on the recent developments in the cyclonic operation. That gives more weightage, and the readers, as common people, we are very keen to know about their opinion. That's opinion piece. This unit, this presentation is talking about the various dimensions of opinion writing. Come, let us discuss more about that. This unit is being divided into multiple subsects in order to explain the various aspects of opinion writing. Similarly, this unit is being written with certain objectives. After reading this unit, you will be able to understand the difference between opinion writing and other journalistic writing, the characteristics of opinion writing, how to plan an opinion writing piece, and the scope of opinion writing in a newsroom operation. Journalists, sub-editors, wire service. These three major components of editorial team contribute substantial content, as we discussed in the beginning of this presentation. They are bound to give the stories, news stories. Senior journalists are assigned to produce feature stories. The news stories or feature stories are supposed to operate within the certain objective parameters. That's the ethical guideline of any newsroom setup. They can't go on beyond that. Personal viewpoints are not allowed. That's being discussed frequently in many units. But as a reader, the common reader, they are not experts in every field. And if you look at the newspapers, every day, the variety of subjects are covered. Sometimes health stories, sometimes foreign affairs, sometimes terrorist attack, political stories, economic affairs, sports events, and many more. And readers are not expertise, doesn't have expertise in every field. We used to read, we understand the common concepts, but we want to go beyond the event. Feature stories, they're giving interpretation, objective interpretations. But what about the other side of the story? The different opinion, alternative opinion, or maybe some solution to the issues. That's why the editorial team always invites opinion from outside the newsroom. Subject experts. Subject experts are bound to give their opinion, which may not be objective, which is subjective in nature, and they are mostly having command over the subject. They have authority. They have authority comes because of expertise and experience, and they'll try to give their opinion, which may not be objective, sometimes subjective also. But objectivity and subjectivity not a big question in opinion writing. The invited person has a credibility in that subject and gives opinion about the event, and it's if it is acceptable, not acceptable, depends upon the readers. Before we move on to the opinion piece and its different dimensions of operations, let us understand the different kinds of opinion pieces exist in the newspaper columns. Basically, we can divide the opinion writing soft stories into 5 categories. The first one is editorials. It's an opinion of particular publication, newspaper. It's not a one editor's or the chief editor or sub-editor's viewpoint on any given subject. It's a collective opinion that represents the particular publication. Usually the editorials are written by a senior associate editor or senior member of editorial team. The newspapers used to have a regular meeting, editorial meeting. Bigger newspaper, they used to have everyday meeting. They'll identify a topic which needs to be discussed today in the editorials. They'll give the different members gives the different viewpoints and they'll argue about particular point. But the major newspapers always have their own stand. They may be either in the left side or the right side or center of the ideological framework, or sometimes with the government or pro-government or anti-government, or on every aspect. The major newspaper, they tend to take a stand. That's their stand. That may not reflect in their daily newspaper operations, but the editorials, they take a firm stand. That's editorials. That's a newspaper's opinion. Very clear, and readers are very much aware about editorials of any newspaper. Okay, this particular newspaper A, they used to give this kind of opinion on this kind of topics, B and C, but we can easily classify. And based on the matching opinions between the newspapers and the readers, we used to develop our loyalty. Better the loyalty, we continue the subscription of the newspaper, either in the print form or in online format. So always the editorials reflects the collective opinion of the publications. The second one is the columns. Columns are regular contribution from a set of people. They are not occasional writers. They are regular people, maybe full-time employees of their own newspapers or contract writers. They are not part of the newsroom on daily basis operation, but they contribute regularly, weekly or fortnightly or monthly on different topics. The columnists are usually generic writers. They usually gives opinion for major recent developments. They may not have a particular expertise, or they may not have particular experience or domain expertise on any given topic. Rather, they tend to give their opinions on wide variety of the subjects. There are plenty of columnists available in international level or national level. Nowadays, the columnists are existing in their own independent platform. Some of the writers, prominent writers, they regularly contribute in the social media. There are big followers for that also. So that's a different developments altogether. The third category, the among the five types of opinion writing, three we can consider as a serious opinion pieces. The third one is opinion writing. That's the focus of this unit. That's what being introduced in the earlier slide, saying that opinion writing is being given by the subject experts. They represents their own expertise and they take a stand that may be maybe a objective or subjective stand, but they tend to give opinion which is go along with the newspaper ideology. That's why they are being invited to give, and the most of the time the subject experts who are giving opinion pieces gets acceptance in the readers. That's why they're able to sustain in the newspaper operations. The opinion pieces are reflecting a different viewpoint apart from the editorials, apart from the columns. These are the three serious opinion pieces. The fourth one is about the fourth opinion piece is a cartoon, the visual representation of newspapers' opinion. Mostly the editorials and cartoon goes along together. They goes along with each other because that belongs to the same organization. Editorial is being written by a senior editorial member, and the cartoon is being given by the assigned cartoonist. They tend to reflect the newspaper's common stand. The fifth one is not from the newspaper, not from any particular number of people, individuals, subject experts. Rather, it comes from the audience, comes from the readers. The reader, basically, the newspaper tend to publish the letters to editors that reflects that's feedback of any of the four or first three opinion pieces, regular columns, regular editorials, and opinion pieces. The major important good quality feedback in the name of letters to editor is being chosen by the editorial team and gets published. But they might have received many number of letters to editor, but they'll try to balance both positive and negative feedback from the audience, from the readers. As a regular reader of a newspaper, we can understand easily the newspaper has its own rules and regulations. Basic rule is the newspaper has to cover today's development or recent developments. This fundamental rule is applicable to all the components of newspapers: hard news, soft news, editorials, and columns. And this rule is applicable to open piece also. And if you look at the paper, and if you look at your newspaper, the subscribed newspaper, you understand that over the 2 weeks or 2 months time, what sort of stories are covered. The readers always gives much more importance to the point which is latest, and always the prominence, the news value, whichever being covered extensively gets attention, and the reader wants to know the other side of the story along with the features interpretation. So the topic has to be much more relevant and related to the today's recent developments. And there are a lot of stories happens, a lot of subjects being covered every day, and then a newspaper covers hundreds of stories in a particular day. But in that, which one is suits for opinion writing? Mostly they'll go for highest news value content, which has a prominence, which attracts huge attention and curiosity. Attention, curiosity from the readers are very crucial for newspapers. Higher the attention, higher the circulation, higher the viewpoints for the websites, higher the TRP ratings, and higher the circulation over the period of time means higher the revenue. So attracting the eyeballs always the main motive of any commercial newspapers, because all the newspapers are business oriented. They need a revenue. In order to boost their revenue, they need a circulation, higher circulation. in order to retain or increase the circulation, they always attracts the audience attention. In order to attract the attention, the topic has to be recent development. That's applicable to opinion piece also. That and mainly the topic has to be to, relevant and should create a curiosity. And once the topic is identified, the subject experts is being invited to give a write-up on that topic. The writer is expected to give a very rational and analytical piece, analytical writing piece. It should have very systematic and logical presentation of points, logical presentation of arguments. Different viewpoints needs to be collated in a very logical way, and that should reflect a kind of different viewpoints, alternative viewpoints, which may not be covered so far by the newspapers or different other platform. So that's a main rule. So that's why the opinion piece always being given highest attention in a newsroom setup. The different kinds of topics we were discussing about the topics, but we will come to the generic pattern how a newspaper operates in a newsroom setup. There are four main components as being described in the units: crime, cinema, celebrities, and cricket. The commercial newspapers, the national or regional newspapers, are more inclined towards the audience demand. As you know, the Indian population dividend is more close to the young population, around 29-30 years. The younger people are expecting stories related to cricket, celebrities, crime, and cricket. But these four are not common in all the newspapers. There are other areas which needs equally important attention, like politics, international affairs, financial issues, and social issues. Particularly the political issues attracts highest attention along with the celebrities and cricket. Of course, that's a different matter. The reason is we have a democratic setup. We have a spectrum of political parties. Political parties takes different ideological stand. So you take any political developments, you can have at least two viewpoints, two opinions. One which supports the issue, one which is opposing the issue. There are multiple players in order to give opinions, but at least newspapers they try to go for a viewpoint which is alternate to the newspaper stand. Of course, the editorial columns they'll give their own stand, and they'll expect the opinion writer to give alternative viewpoint. So they'll balance the viewpoints, balance the discussion, balance the arguments about particular issue. So the political issues are always the hot topic, and there is no dearth of topic. And throughout the year, either national level or regional level, you will find plenty of the new developments. Each development may not attract the attention of editorial team, but the crucial one on governance issue, they'll tend to give more space for opinion pieces. Another one is the social issues and public policies, economic reforms, and the policy, central government policy or state government policy for rural infrastructure or panchayat level reforms. These are public policies meant for upliftment of human living conditions. It needs a close scrutiny from multiple perspectives. So newspaper plays their own role in that level. There may be argument in a different platform in the parliament or in the state assembly or in the public meetings or in a different public spheres. Newspaper also gives their They provide a platform for different viewpoints, alternative viewpoints, and the opinion piece gives not necessarily the opinion or the alternative opinion. They suggest a different solution. They suggest a different way out for an issue, social policy or public policy on economic reforms, financial reform, tax collections, migrant issues. Similar to politics and social issues, there's another one major component in the public opinion, in major component in the opinion piece is cultural and educational area. These are the soft side of the opinion, soft side of the newsroom operation, unlike the politics and these are little very hot topics. Now we have seen the different characteristics of opinion pieces, how opinion piece is being placed in the newspaper operations, what sort of topic is being identified, and what type of topic gets prominence in the newspaper columns. Now we'll see a very brief presentation of a newspaper's coverage on opinion pieces the last couple of days. Now look at what sort of topic is being covered, and more importantly, and who wrote that opinion piece. In the examples, you might have noticed that the recent past, the newspaper attempts to cover the latest developments, major issues of international affairs, major issues in the health affairs, and the migrant issues, and the political issues. Wide variety of the topics being covered, but mostly the recent one, highly important one. And all the pieces are written by eminent people from their respective domains. They have authority to explain or criticize or give opinion on all the area of all the areas of the newspaper articles covered that. So with that, I think we are coming to the main component of how to plan opinion pieces. Before that, briefly we'll explain what are the main characteristics of opinion. Opinion pieces should be timely and focus on recent developments. Unlike a news story, news stories should be based on information and there is no scope for opinion. But then opinion pieces should be constructed or should be written with information along with opinion, heavily loaded with opinions. That's a specialty of the opinion pieces. Once a writer identifies a topic and trying to present his viewpoints, of course, the person should have a strong command over the subject. The argument reflects his or her own experiences, and trying to connect with the broader spectrum of the discipline. Because today's development is the latest development, but try to link it with the overall domain of the specific topic. Identifying, giving opinion, and linking with the broad spectrum of the domain needs to be packaged with keeping audience in mind. The common readers are not experts in each discipline. We have the basic knowledge. We have keen interest in exploring many more. And the audience knowledge, audience understanding should be the basic building block, should be the basic parameters while writing an opinion piece. The writer may be an expert, but the opponent person, the person who's receiving the opinion piece, not in equal position. So it has to be presented in that way. The common audience should be able to understand the opinion, should be able to understand and give kind of argument and enlarge the knowledge. So that's the main purpose of the opinion piece. The first stage is, of course, the editorial team has rights to allot opinion piece to any subject writer. But many times the writers approaches the publications also. So either way, the writer should approach the subject in a simplistic way, and it should be have a good number of information, and while presented in a very passionate way. And newspaper normally never gives a space for writing opinion piece about another opinion, commenting on another comments. That will give chain reaction, arguments, counter arguments. There's no end to any particular issue. So it should be fresh and should be from the perspective of the subject. And there's no need and it's not allowed to write a opinion piece about another comment. That in a newspaper never allowed that kind of writings. And like there's a strong difference between news story and opinion piece, opinion without opinion, with opinionated system. The opinion pieces should not be written in any format of newspaper style. News story, it has its own structure. Feature story, it has its own structure, very generic structure, but more or less is being covered. But opinion pieces should be different from the newspaper column style. The way the opinion pieces are arguing about alternative viewpoints, the opinion piece should be written in an alternative way. It gives a relief for the audience to go through a recent topic in a different way of presentation on different arguments. That's a second most important specialty of the opinion pieces. As the opinion piece always presenting in arguments, the writer should anticipate what sort of counter arguments comes for his or her own argument. The person should anticipate this kind of reaction may come for my argument. So accordingly, the facts and figures has to be presented in a very logical way to counter the counter arguments. The opinion piece is not a very lengthy essay, not a thesis, not a kind of bigger comment documents like that. It's around 800 to 700 to 800 words piece. Within that, the whole topic has to be dissected, argument has to be placed in a logical way, and anticipate the counter arguments and present necessary facts and figures to settle the counter arguments. And also, since the person comes from the subject area, the news story usually gives a today's perspective and with a limited prism. And the subject person, the expert have a very wide variety of experience in that topic, can give different milestones, timelines, major achievements, and different levels of approaches, different levels of opinions existing in a different platform, either the national perspective or international perspective. So unknown facts, that's what the readers wants. We have familiar with the today's development. And what about the other aspect of the same topic? Arguments and the different arguments and counter arguments and unknown facts has to be presented in the way. While writing an opinion piece, the story has to be presented in a very straight format and come to the point. Because the story has to be, the opinion piece has to be written in a very limited word count, around 800 points. That's one of the points in this slide. So within that point, there is the writer doesn't have much space to present a very lengthy argument. So come to the point and argue and present the facts and give the further argument goes like that opinion piece. The opinion piece not an analysis, because that analysis we have seen in the feature writing itself, interpretation and commentary. And here, the arguments, opinions against a policy, against a system, against one event, against one topic. The writer should attempt to give an alternative way of approaching a solution, alternative way of approaching implementation of the problem, implementation of policy issues. Because the person has a knowledgeable way, he or she might have encountered similar situation in the earlier time in a different context, either the national level or maybe other country level. So with their taking a reference from a different context, a kind of solution may be provided. Of course, this is not a binding factor for anyone. A kind of a counter argument is being placed. There may be a certain points may be taken forward by the concerned authorities, concerned people. So the attempt has to be made to present the solution. And like a normal writing exercise, and the sentence has to be short and the paragraph should be tight, and the word limit has been mentioned many times that it's around 700. It's a standard format, and with the limited number of space, with the limited number of words, the writer has a kind of constraints with a boundary. And within the boundary, everything can't be approached. So it has to be focused and boundary has to be fixed within that limitations, and all attempt has to be made to provide a reasonable justified presentation. Once the topic is identified, the committee is being collected and presented, the writer should keep in mind the newspaper's style, newspaper's policy, because the piece should coexist the other stories and should go along with the regular news presentation style, a regular policy of the newspaper on the given topic, either writing style or the subject matter. The writer should have kind of close affinity with the newspaper's platform. And like I earlier said, the material has to be collected in a very systematic way as being an expert, and the person must be having all the collected information in the easiest way the person can collect in a very short notice. And the word limit is limited, hence the proper outline needs to be prepared, and think from the audience point of view and show many examples, show some case studies and experiences. So that matters more important than the information, presenting different information. And of course, the person who's writing for newspapers regularly understands the system of writing. As a being a journalism student, the starting career, while starting your career, there's a internationally and nationally there's a standard rule in newspapers. If the person is young and with a limited experience, the opinion piece may be allotted to the person with a limited experience, but with the 80-20 ratio. 80% information, 20% opinion. It's in certain context, very limited number of people involved in that area or the subject or thing, and a scarcity of the resource people. Younger people may be considered for given context, given time constraints. So in that case, mostly they'll encourage the younger person to write more with information with limited opinion. So 80% and 20% ratio. This is a standard format. But as a journalism student, immediately you may not get the opportunity to write opinion pieces, but as the online medium and social media is providing plenty of opportunity, you start with your own writing and keep building your cases on a given topic. You may not be able to write the opinion piece in every area, but you can specialize in certain areas and try to contribute regularly over the period of time that accumulates your experience and knowledge about handling that particular topic. And like a normal story, the intro always important because this is the space, this is the element. It attracts audience attention, retaining attention, and getting them and bringing them towards the end. So the intro is very crucial, and headlines important, but normally subject experts they will never spend more time on headlines. Of course, there will be a sub editor or a copy editor. The person will go through the subject writer's opinion piece. It will be edited, fine tuned according to the newspaper policy. Of course, headlines will be finalized by the editorial team only. Mostly subject experts they provide a headline, but no need to spend more time on headlines. That's a editorial team's responsibility. They'll take it forward. The language and style should match with the reader's understanding and should match with the newspaper's style of writing. So that's very important. And economy of words with the common words and avoiding scientific terms, avoiding complicated terms are always better for effective presentation. And choice of words, and particularly if the opinion piece meant for 1800 words, the standard practice is start writing for at least for 1200, 1300, 1500 words one, and further editing copy second draft, third draft, cut down the unnecessary part, comes to the concentrated, very effective presentation with the limited 700, 800 words. The editing is very crucial now. Drafting first, putting all the points, and then further editing that gives a fine tuning the opinion pieces.